Same old trouble, villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same.
Thank you, Vandillo, and welcome once again to Graphically Novel. My name is Josh Wasta, a.k.a. Fallout Fury. And with me, as always, is my Mordo. Let's go with the obvious one. And I've waited a long time to say this, and spoilers for the comic, my capitalism, which is the true villain.
I'm capitalism. Wow.
It's fair.
Well, at least you didn't say I was your Iron Fist.
Oh,
And with us,
Not for many, many years. We've not gotten that desperate.
And with us, as always, the lovely and talented, the Baroness, our night nurse.
I don't know how much longer that this keeps up, but yes, here I am. Hello. My pleasure today is to introduce a dear friend of mine.
Very old friend of mine. My very first game master,
Who was actually my introduction to comics.
This is the man you talked about in our second episode,
Yes.
Jessica Jones, when you talked about who gave you Sandman.
Yep.
In the original issues.
Yes. This man gave me, and this speaks highly of our relationship. He gave me his long boxes with the individual bagged and boarded issues of Sandman to read. He trusted me with this, and I appreciate it.
I think I originally did that with Transmet with you, but I sat in the room and stared at you.
You did. I'd like to welcome Rex Balboa to the show. Rex, thank you so much for joining us.
Quite honestly, it's going to be hard to respond to any of that. But I also think it's important and might be overlooked in the annals of history that I am also responsible for giving you the nickname Baronessa.
That's true. That's
Really?
true. Oh my God. That is so true.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Rex, it's about fucking time you were on the goddamn show.
I'm really, really excited to be here. A project that I've been working on, Baby Got Back issues, which I would say go and look if you can find our site and listen to those casts is great. But we're on an open-ended hiatus right now, so this is just a wonderful opportunity to get on board with y'all. And wow, I had never read this story, so I really appreciate being introduced to new cool things.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get into doing Doctor Strange today, Rex, it is the first time you've been on a Graphically Novel production. So we ask our first-time guests to give us a little background into your history with comic books.
My first comic that I remember having was Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes 199. And that would have been from the early 70s. The first comic I remember collecting was Micronauts #1. And at the time, I received a paper catalog from Mile High Comics out of Denver.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I would have to go get the money order, fill out the order form, send in with my self-addressed stamped envelope, and hope that they would still have it in time for it to come in time to deliver to me.
Oh my God. Did you also get Sea Monkeys that way?
I was never a big fan of Sea Monkeys, but man, I had a lot of those Green Army men that were always advertised on the back. And I did get a pair of X-ray specs once. I don't think I've ever admitted that out loud. And no, they did not
Stare
work.
at the hand. No. Sadly,
So I've been collecting comics in earnest since I was about 12. My current collection runs about 200 books shy of 10,000 comics right now.
Woo!
Wow.
I was a teenage Marvel zombie, I confess. However, most of my collection, about 2/3 of my collection, is DC Comics. I happened to get onto DC at a very good time in their existence in the mid-90s, as they were doing great books like Swamp Thing, Crisis on Infinite Earths. They were supporting Sandman and the entire Vertigo imprint. Throughout my undergrad in college, I worked and managed local comic book shops, and ever since then, it's just been keeping up on what is good, not always what is popular.
So
but I
what
try
is
to find what's good.
what's something right now that you would tell people you may not know about this, but man, check it out?
You know what? I gotta say, if you're not reading Nightwing right now, it is
Really?
probably the best superhero book out there. It really captures a positive spirit of a detective and somebody who really wants to make the world better. The art is very clean. The storytelling is upbeat and positive while dealing with pretty serious issues. So Nightwing would definitely be one that I would suggest. That's a regular ongoing from DC right now. Start at about issue 71. Similarly, Supergirl World of Tomorrow is a miniseries coming out of DC, which, a lot like Nightwing, really defines the character of Supergirl as positive, as working the problem. And I can't tell you, but this whole thing is so beautifully rendered. It is just gorgeous to look at. It's written by Tom King, and I'm forgetting the artist right now, but it's just a fantastic book. And it's a contained story. It's got about 2 issues left.
My co-host of Rec Conversations, Leah Cameron, turned me on to Mr. Tom King recently, and we did Mr. Miracle, which was an amazing storyline that I had never even heard of. And it was heartbreakingly gorgeous and silly. And we did it, actually, Rec Conversations, we explained a storyline. We explained it all to J.R. Killian Green, who by the end is like, okay, this is in my shopping cart because I have a pretty good idea that you guys only scratched the surface by explaining everything. Only scratch the surface of really what I'm going to pull out of this book. And I'm like, yes. And from what I've seen, that is just Tom King. Vision is going to be another one. His run of Vision is another one that I've got on my docket to read.
Absolutely.
One of my new favorite authors right now is Tom King.
Well, and he brings such an interesting perspective. I mean, Tom King I don't know if you knew this, he's an ex-government agent. He was an analyst for the CIA.
I did not know that.
To my knowledge. And the first book that he wrote for DC was Grayson, which took, Dick Grayson and kind of placed him in more of a spy setting. And he applies that to practically everything that he writes, that knowledge and understanding of how people function. So you look at Vision and how that breaks down. What does it mean to be a family? What does mortality mean? All of those kind of deep things. You look at the trauma of Mr. Miracle.
Yeah.
And then I would also say, if you haven't taken a look at it, Strange Adventures, which he just finished. Another fascinating look at how war affects trauma.
Okay.
He just started Human Target, which has just been a delight. The only thing that I would say, put it to the bottom of the pile, would be Heroes in Crisis, which sounds like such a good idea on the surface, but they just could not pull it off effectively.
Good to know. Okay. So you are here today to discuss. We go from discussing Tom King to Brian K. Vaughan. So we will be discussing Doctor Strange, and for today we did The Oath, which was a storyline out of 2007. So this is a full 9 years before the Doctor Strange movie. But man, the fingerprints were all over the movie from specifically this comic. This was a retelling of kind of Doctor Strange's origins, not a full retcon, just a kind of collection of everything. But first time reading it, I think all 4 of us first time reading it. Rex, what did you think?
You know what? Doctor Strange has always had a very special place in my heart. And he is one of those characters that really deserves good storytelling, but has never actually really gotten it until I read something like this. Mm-hmm. This book captures all of the characterizations of the Doctor Strange, you get that sense of his history, his arrogance, his almost like absent-minded professor behavior.
Yes.
In all of this, and it's a solid story. I loved it right up into the last panel, which I absolutely hated.
Okay.
So I'll just leave that out there as a cliffhanger then.
So you liked 59 pages, but didn't like one. I mean, that's good.
Yes. I'll take that percentage any day.
Jen, what'd you think?
I also saw a lot of the movie in the comic. This is from an era that is not to my liking. This is not I'm not as into this type of comic book. But it was, it wasn't as difficult to read as some of the things that we've had to read for this show.
We were just talking with Rex. I recommended that he go back and listen to our Dark Phoenix episode.
Oh my God.
I recommend.
Come on, you don't like cheesy thought bubbles? Come on.
Yeah, right?
No, what was the one? That was not even the worst. What was the one where it was like, was it Infinity? Where it was like there were 1,001 characters that we had no idea who they were.
Oh no,
all jammed into
that was the Cancerverse. That was
Yes.
the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh my God, no! This was.
I still didn't think that was as bad as Dark Phoenix.
This was interesting, and gave me I made a lot of comparisons to the movie as I was reading. I was like, that's an interesting choice. That's an interesting choice. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a really good template for the movie.
Fair.
I loved this. I really hadn't read, the closest I get to reading anything even remotely related to Strange was a couple of times we came across him when we were doing Alan Moore stuff.
Yeah.
Like during Swamp Thing and miscellaneous odds and ends.
He wouldn't have been in Swamp Thing.
Was he not in Swamp Thing? What was he in? There was something, wasn't it an Alan Moore thing? Maybe it wasn't.
I don't know that we did anything Alan
I
Moore
can't
Marvel.
think of anything that he would have done with Alan
I can't
Moore.
remember. I know we ran into him sideways in a couple of other episodes. I can't remember.
We
what
ran
it was.
into him in Blade.
That's okay. That's one of the things. But we also ran into, Doom in Blade. So
That's true. Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the story. I don't know how you couldn't, from the same guy that did Runaways and Why the Last Man.
Yeah.
Yes, and we did read his run on Runaways as well.
Yeah.
And we were guests on the other Graphically novels Why the Last Man episode.
Right. It's true.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. They brought out some characters I'm not super familiar with. We had a nice little super villain team up going on in there. It was a fun time. I really enjoyed reading it.
Same. Hadn't read it before. This is if I'm going to do space and mystic, Marvel are the two areas that I kind of steer clear of. I just don't tend to enjoy them as much for the reason that they can get kind of convoluted. Marvel has a reputation for trying to explain the unexplainable. It's kind of and their stuff in space Marvel is kind of like Star Trek does, run it through the deflector dish. So it's two panels.
The deflector dish can do anything.
Right. It's two panels worth of them trying desperately to explain something that they're making up anyway. So it could have just been a sentence. Magic tends to work in the same way. Except in this book. I like that in this book, they go out of their way to say magic cannot do what science does, and science cannot do what magic does in very, in it kind of
anything that science can already do, magic can't do.
Right. Which isn't really true, but it is for this story, because we have whips, so you can't have a magic whip because science, it's physics.
Right.
Anyway, but reading the story, I did really enjoy it. There were some hokey bits. This is definitely also a Brian K. Vaughan jam because he takes his time to kind of poke fun at some certain things. On my Facebook, I had to put up the panel of Doctor Strange telling Night Nurse that she can go with him, but he's not going to call her Night Nurse because that sounds like an adult movie. But yeah, anything like, again, this comic has Night Nurse in it, which is not a character that gets the love that she should. First of all, because she is like literally the person that patches up superheroes. And actually a lot of character development for her too. A lot of things happen to further her story outside of a Defenders comic.
Is that who you thought Claire was going to be? And
That is, well, I mean, without them calling her that, that is who Claire is in all of the Defenders stuff. Rosario Dawson's character in Daredevil and Iron Fist and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, and she's the kind of the tie, same kind of thing, but she does.
But
everybody.
is that? Do you think that that's the character that they were? Okay.
Yep.
And I'm so glad that you didn't say, "Oh, look, it's Night Nurse," and I would have been like, "Okay."
Yeah. I think at one point I made the comment of, "Oh, okay, that's Night Nurse," and you were like, "Okay, whatever." Like, because you're like, "I'm enjoying her. Don't
go away.
Don't call her Night Nurse." But
I will echo the thoughts about Night Nurse, particularly being Claire. I mean, Night Nurse has a very interesting history. You've actually got 3 different characters that make up the Night Nurse, of which Claire for the films is kind of an amalgam.
Yes.
And I like that, as far as I can tell, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, they never actually name this Night Nurse. So you're not sure. Obviously, she's not Georgina Jenkins. But you're not exactly sure which one they're pulling from.
Right.
They make her a surgeon. Once again, that really ties into the film very well.
Right.
So it's just kind of cool that again, the film pulled a lot from this series. It feels like
it sure did. At one point, Strange asks her what her real name is, and she says, "You're the detective." Like, and that's really what starts their whole Sherlock Watson thing, which is retroactively funny, but in a way that Sherlock wouldn't come out for another 3 years. Benedict Cumberbatch wouldn't be Doctor Strange for 6 years after that, but still funny.
Yes.
Circumstantially funny. The only other date that I have on here that we're not going to get too far into because it is a spoiler for the comic, but it's I got really big Martin Shkreli vibes off of but that didn't happen until 2015. So again, this comic will read this comic and go, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, life imitates art.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the main villain is capitalism, which I loved. But going back to the movie, I know we rewatched it. Bear, did you rewatch for this?
I did not, but I've actually rewatched Avengers recently, which kind of gave me enough backstory, really.
Well, it had been years since I watched the movie. Rex, have you watched the Doctor Strange movie anytime recently?
I have, and every time I watch it, it's my love for Tilda Swinton just overpowers everything.
Exactly.
Well, and Mads Mikkelsen, but I'm just like, who's playing the protagonist again? Oh, he's a good-looking English guy too.
Yeah. Well, but and also it's our introduction to Wong, which becomes.
How do you not love Wong?
And they've done such a great job with Shang-Chi and moving forward that they have given Wong a lot more to do.
And a lot. I mean, comparatively, Marvel Cinematic Universe Wong and comic book Wong, there is a world of difference.
Different characters.
There is a world of difference, and for the better. The much better.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been reading Marvel Comics for a long time, and quite honestly, I think The Oath is probably one of the few comics that does Wong any justice. Establishes him as a little bit outside of, just being an appendage to Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I got big Green Hornet vibes.
Yes. Very much.
Yeah.
Very much so.
I didn't
yeah.
even think of that. That's a really good observation. But the thing that struck me is why, like, what? Okay, let me try and form this as a sentence that makes sense. In what like mindset do you think the Sorcerer Supreme needs a body man, like a valet? Why?
Well, and I think the movies and this comic both explain that pretty well.
The movie better, because the people who serve in that capacity are apprentices.
Mm-hmm.
They are learning to be. In the comic, Wong was a servant who had ability.
So that opens the door. And Rex, you know way more about the history of Doctor Strange than I do, but we've discussed it a little bit when we discuss another Doctor Strange villain occasionally, but mostly a Iron Man villain, the Mandarin. There are some problematic things.
Absolutely.
And that's why I ended up like, there were a lot of people that were super pissed in the Iron Man movies when they introduced Trevor and the whole Mandarin thing.
Yeah.
But originally when you saw it, you're like, it's a white dude playing the Mandarin. And I'm like, yes, that's actually one of those things that's better. I mean, it is whitewashing, but it's whitewashing a villain that was a horrible Fu Manchu stereotype.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give that one a pass.
Well, that was a better explanation.
Yes. And then to come full circle and for those who have not watched Shang-Chi, that is where that explanation is awesome and makes sense and is
and you gotta watch on Disney Plus, you gotta watch the little, what is it, like
the vignette.
half-hour, 15-minute or half-hour vignette in there with where they nab him out of prison.
That was an addition on. Okay, so it was Iron Man 3. That was the Mandarin. That was they did a whole series of those. And I can't remember what they were called, but Marvel put out like little 15-minute things on DVDs and Blu-rays that were like little 15-minute
like additional.
Yes. Yeah. It's actually
featurette.
Yeah, if you're looking at What If, the first episode of What If, and you're like, oh, Bradley Whitford is in this for some reason, it's because his character was in this little vignette that was on the Captain America First Avenger DVD, and they brought that character back. Right. So all of that is on Disney Plus now. High recommend to go and find it because it adds just really fun.
You know, I would really love to see their giant board with yarn for the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
You want to see
I'm fairly certain some poor production assistant has been trapped in there.
Right.
Yeah.
And the yarn goes, it's not just on the board, it's like all around the room, and they're like kind of hanging from the red yarn.
And there's different color yarn.
Well, TV shows, shared universes, all these things have production manuals that are called Bibles.
Yeah.
That they have all the rules and everything. So that thing's gotta be fucking enormous.
Thick with 3 C's.
Darling, that
so
is
thick that Bear would date it.
That Bible is on a tablet because we live in the 21st century.
It's true.
Well, I guess
they've had to upgrade the memory in that tablet 2 or 3 times.
I guess my question then, kind of taking the characterization of Juan, if we're talking about the movie, what did you all think about the casting of Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One? I mean, that was, because I preparing for this podcast, that was on my mind a lot, and I
loved it. I loved it because even though they referred to her as a her, she, whatever, I feel like Tilda Swinton, see her filmography, has played many characters that have zero gender.
Yeah, she's done androgyny.
She is the actor.
Take a look at Constantine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Orlando.
Yeah, Orlando. Yeah.
She is perfect for those kinds of roles where you need that gravitas that doesn't have a feminine energy or a masculine energy. It is a, completely, an energy within
a magical energy.
Well, but it's just an energy that is genderless, basically.
Sure, right. Well, and spoiler for an episode we will do in the future, and probably have Rex on for Sandman.
Yes,
I mean,
of course we will.
Fortunately, we live in a world now where they can actually cast a non-binary person to play Desire, which they have, which is awesome.
Yes,
it's great.
Yeah.
Had that not been the case, Tilda Swinton, not because she in herself is non-binary, at least not as far as I know.
Right.
Not that she is announced.
Right.
But that is just such something that she portrays well.
Yes.
And something that she exudes very well.
Right.
That, yes, would I have appreciated an actual Tibetan actor in that role? Yes.
But the point was, like, and they
Yes.
made that point, she wasn't Tibetan. She
Right.
was Celtic.
Right.
You know, and I liked that in the movie where it was like, yes, this is where the seat of this power is, but it is ancient, and people from all over the world have been attracted and trained and served, even though it is in this,
Right.
in Tibet, it's all peoples.
Yes.
I'd also like to point out, just for the record, because I looked her up, Tilda Swinton's 61 friggin' years old.
Right.
Mhm.
Like, barely looks a day over 30.
Right. Well, the other thing I think that is genius about casting Tilda Swinton is she looks just in and of herself timeless, but also otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
She is a unique individual, and I think that really serves that character very well.
And listening to you, Jen, I think you're helping me clarify an idea. Tilda Swinton in that role kind of transcends all of the ephemerals.
Yes.
Gender, nationality, and I quite honestly, I cannot think of an actor, even if it was cast as with an Asian actor, for whom it wouldn't have been stereotypical. But
Yeah.
Tilda gives us a performance that, as what I'm hearing again from you, is kind of transcendent of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I agree with you completely. I can't think of another actor that could do that as well
Right.
as she does.
Yeah, I it's definitely a thing that in this period of Marvel was a concern. Obviously Scarlett Johansson was already playing Black Widow, so she couldn't play any Asian actor. But
Stop hating on Scar.
I'm not
Scarjo.
hating on her. She's just the example that people use.
She did a good job in Her.
Yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
That's true.
That was a pretty transcendent role.
And she
but-
wasn't even really into AI.
Yeah, I mean, I still think, and I think you nailed it. It's an actress who has gravitas, and that is what drives that role.
Yes.
You need to believe her when she speaks, and not just go, oh, that's some hand wavium, that's going on in the background. You can kind of go, okay, I'd worship at Tilda's feet. I mean, I'd worship at Tilda's feet anyway.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, and you can very easily cross into monologuing about magic, like I said, in a Star Trek-y way. And the script does this excellently, but also her performance. You are paying attention to what she's saying, and she never loses. My biggest example is in the second Matrix movie, where he meets the elderly lady, the Oracle, at the basketball court, and she's explaining kind of the plot that he needs to go forward. And it's a 15-minute scene, and I understood what she was saying in the first 2 minutes, but then she kept talking for another 13 minutes, and by the end I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And, very easily you could have run into that with the Ancient One explaining magic to a surgeon, or in the, but she did it in a way that it was succinct, it was to the point, and it was in a scientific way, because she's explaining it to us, the audience, who are science-based, because, we live in the world, in a way that the same way that she's explaining it to the character of Steven.
Right.
And it's awesome. And I loved it. And I've seen so many examples of, we need to pound this home. You don't, we'll go along with you. Give us enough to follow you. and that's all we need, and perfect. Because again, magic stuff in general, I can easily get lost in it. The magicians did it to me too.
Yeah.
We need to explain the science of magic. No, you don't.
And it's entertaining and ironic. So in Origins of Marvel Comics, where Stan Lee is going through what went into the creation of Doctor Strange, he's like, I can't just have this mystic character go, and I quote, okay, hocus pocus, go to another dimension.
Right.
So he invents these words that sound good together. The demons of darkness, the name of Santish, the flames of Faltine.
The eye of Agamotto.
Exactly. All of this is generated from him just, oh, well, this is a better way of talking. I'm going to make all this up. And even in this origin story, he's got college kids writing back to him saying, wow, where did you get that deep knowledge of druidic literature? So Josh, your thoughts about magic are you're not alone in having them. And he's like, okay, no, I was really making it up, but I've gotta, what do I tell these kids? And he says, oh, I just read a lot.
You get a no prize. So I want to make sure to take just a second, because we talked about a lot of other characters, and I'm never ever going to be able to pronounce his name correctly. Chiwetel Ejiofor, he played Mordo. Also, he was the operative in Serenity.
Oh,
Yes, Rex saw me shaking my fist.
Yeah.
All right, lawful evil or neutral? Let's that might be another podcast.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
as we talk about actors and things that they do well, I saw elements of the operative in Mordo. And I love that, because no one hits that point of the world is the world, but I can change the world for the better. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be a part of my better world, which is a point that the operative makes.
Yeah.
But it's a point that Mordo also makes when he says there are too many sorcerers. He doesn't necessarily mean he's one of the ones that gets to survive.
Right.
And we have yet to see, because he'll be coming back in this. Right. By the time this airs, by the way, we'll be a month away from Doctor Strange.
The second one.
Hey,
Madness of the Multiverse.
You said that out loud. They're not going to delay it again after you said that? Man,
Oh yeah, who knows? I know. Somewhere Leia's like, don't talk about Black Widow, because they'll retroactively just pull it from everything and release it.
I was going to say, we're not talking about Black Widow.
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry.
But anyway, again, that idea, and I've seen him in if you want to see him completely break with character, Kinky Boots is one of my favorite roles of his. But I mean, he does a lot of different things. He's a very brilliant actor that has an awesome range. But
I would say 12 Years a Slave, if you want to say
an
amazing movie.
Yes. But again, there are things that he does well. Tilda Swinton does androgynous, otherworldly well, because she is, Chiwetel does an agent for a better world well.
Well, but also, I mean, it's interesting that you brought up the agent and compared it to Mordo, because in the movie, the Ancient One says to Doctor Strange, you have the ability to be flexible.
Yes.
Mordo has a path.
Yes.
And cannot be flexible like you can.
Right.
He cannot change. He takes in information, but his viewpoint doesn't change.
Right.
And that was the same as the agent. Like, he got information, but he still had to follow the regimen.
It took massive amounts of information.
It took breaking him. Is what it took.
Yeah.
It took breaking him and saying that the world that you will create is not the world you've been trying to.
Right.
In order. Spoilers for Serenity, by the way.
Hello. There cannot exactly.
Yeah.
Also, fuck you. You killed Wash.
I was going to say, if you're here and you've made it this far through our podcast and you haven't seen Serenity yet, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. But yeah,
Now,
it's
Sorry, I just wanted to throw in there. I gotta say, like, there's a lot of characterizations in the MCU that I don't care for. I don't know if I'm going to step on anybody's toes, but I don't like Scarlet Witch in the I'm sorry, not Scarlet Witch, Black Widow
Yeah.
in the MCU. Her characterization when she was introduced was terrible.
oh yeah,
Yes.
no,
And
I've
stayed with
recently
it for a
gone
long
back.
time.
Yeah,
But I got to tell you, Baron Mordo, you know, in the comic book, he is paper thin, two-dimensional. And as far as I know, he never gets any depth.
yeah.
But right out of the gate, the MCU provides depth to that character and casts an actor who can deliver.
Right. Well, and you know, makes him somewhat sympathetic, even though, you know, things turn a different way. There is still something that you can identify with in that character, you know, rather than
Absolutely.
in the comic where it was just like, he's this dude.
Absolutely. No, he is the person that and actually it's okay, to put my thoughts in order. The Ancient One talks to Strange and says, "You are flexible." But I think it's not just his flexibility. I think it's his ability to take that flexibility and affect people around him. And the two examples I have are Mordo and Wong.
Yes.
So when faced with, yes, I get it, you know, these are the laws, capital T, capital L, the laws. You cannot violate these things. And then he has to,
Mhm.
because otherwise it's game over.
Right.
So in front of both of them, Strange violates the laws. Wong basically is like, well, if you're going to do it, you need to go on and do it
Yeah.
because it's time,
Yeah.
you know, one way or another. Mordo goes along with it, allows it to happen, but it drives him to villainy because he's like, well, if the laws don't matter, nothing matters. You know, if there
I
are people out
disagree.
there that can break the laws, I need to stop those people. There's too many
Right.
people that can break the laws.
Right. So I think that the way that you put it doesn't drive him to villainy.
In his mind,
Is that
he's saving the world.
but also
Yeah.
if you believe the law is the law, then he's not a villain.
Sure.
But I also think that is not the only pillar of Mordo's character. The
Correct.
MCU.
Yeah.
He is also betrayed.
Mhm.
Yes.
You know, and that, you know, between those two things really forces, again, much like the Operative, a re-examination. And I'm really excited to see Mordo developed, but I really would have liked to have seen the Operative develop a little bit more too.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know that I'd say he believes. I 100% believe he believes he was betrayed because the law says you don't use energy from the dark dimension, and his mentor who taught him the laws was breaking the laws the entire time. And again, brilliance, layers, you know, motivations for a character that, you know, you can look at Mordo and be like, you know, he's not wrong
Right.
in what he's doing. And you have the end credit scene where he basically shows up to the dude that's just using magic to walk. And he's like, no, nature has an order. There are the laws.
Right.
And according to the laws, you should not walk. And I'm sorry, that sucks for you, but you are just another thing that's messing up the world. And I'm really, really looking forward to his reaction to the aftermath of Spider-Man No Way Home in this new Doctor Strange movie.
Well, and another thing, I agree completely with you, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing Mordo in the next movie. But it kind of further strengthens the whole idea that the Ancient Ones saw that Doctor Strange had the ability. Not only did he have like this natural affinity for magic, but that he had the ability to kind of see what's there and how to use what he has to make the best outcome.
Yeah.
And that she didn't trust that Mordo had it because she didn't share anything with him at
Right.
all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that nails it.
Yeah. Well, and even going to I mean, Mads Mikkelsen's character, Casillas, thank you. Casillas,
I'm going to let you all
He's-
pronounce those words before I do.
he's the one that's like, well, if the laws don't matter, then there are no laws.
Right.
You know? and the only thing that will kill us is time. So let's get rid of time. Like, that was a little wacky. Like, I was not following that.
Right.
But I think that he's there as an anchor point to be like, okay, this is too far. So that Mordo even looks more reasonable in his decisions.
Right.
I think that they do that a lot.
Casillas looks very fanatical. But yeah, and I felt like that.
Well, Mads Mikkelsen looks very fanatical.
No, the character looked fanatical because I felt like even though he was very powerful and he had acolytes and whatever, it was kind of silly.
Yeah.
It was not a.
I think it was kind of like, let's make a mage analogy. It's like you had a movie where you've got some order mages, and then you've got a marauder. You got a marauder running around, and you've got
a couple of hollow ones.
No, I'm saying, well, the marauder would be Casillas, and then you got Mordo, who would be
Order of Hermes.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, one of the other
or technocracy.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, if you don't know what we're talking about, that's okay. Sometimes we talk about Vampire on the show, and you know what? Enough people understand Vampire the Masquerade. We just went into Mage the Ascension, and next stop will be Wraith, and no one will understand.
Excuse me.
No, that would be Geist. That would be Geist.
Thank you, Geist.
Yeah,
loved Geist.
I could explain Geist to y'all, but I need like an hour and an easel and a lot of markers. Like,
nah, just have Hollywood
and I need to serve everyone drinks. That's during that whole conversation.
Drinks are very important. Yeah,
that's like a 3-drink minimum.
I'm sorry, Rex. What conversation would we have where we wouldn't be serving drinks?
That's true. That's true. Cheers. That is very true. But boy, that was a fun deep dive there. That was
it was good times. We do that occasionally.
Occasionally, yes.
I have a moment every now and then.
So, other thoughts about Doctor Strange, Jen? Going back and watching it, did you pull anything new when we just watched it 2 nights ago? So still kind of fresh.
I think that what I pulled was that the cinematic universe Doctor Strange, even though he is actually a lot more arrogant and kind of more to deal with, I liked him more. And again, I think it's just the way that I interpret comics, and Marvel and DC comics are just too comic-y for me.
Cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Well, we've got to make sure that we've got enough strong personalities and big arrogant personalities to decide to shoot the Hulk into space.
It's true.
Yeah. But this is not necessarily new and insightful, but I really love the cinematography of the mirror universe being kaleidoscopic.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
It's straight out of Inception.
And
one of my
beautiful.
And I'm not going to at this point that we're recording, it's still new enough. By the time we drop it, it will probably be out of spoiler range, but I will say one of my favorite really appreciated parts of Spider-Man No Way Home has to the mirror dimension.
Yeah.
And it has to do with Peter's view of it versus Strange's view of it, and I fucking love it.
Also,
that was awesome.
Also, science and magic.
Yes, and it is. Because Stephen, as he goes further into magic, starts to forget that he was a surgeon first. His first love was science, was medicine.
Right.
And we're watching that journey.
Yeah.
Which is super interesting to me. I really like that. And I have not seen that in the comics. Even this, which was a fantastic Doctor Strange story, he does some scientific stuff, and I appreciate that. But Night Nurse is there to be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. And also, you stick to your magic shit. And I will do the medicine shit or the science shit because you're rusty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, kind of pulling from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and what we heard Jen say earlier about Strange's flexibility. I think that really comes out, believe it or not, in the What If episode.
Oh God, yes.
Introduces, the dark Doctor Strange.
Yes.
Where, that flexibility is a talent and an advantage, but also you bend too much, and
Mhm.
you've got somebody worse than Mordo who can't break out of his way of thinking. If you push that too much, you'll break the way of thinking altogether.
Right.
And that was I really liked seeing that heading into No Way Home, because it really kind of highlights some of the dangers that he's trying to convey in that film.
So going with just the trailers that were for No Way Home, we were going into it being like, okay, what's going on with Strange?
Well, especially after What If.
Right, especially after what? Yeah,
'Cause
well, Jen's theory was that the Dark Doctor,
That it was actually the Dark Doctor that Spider-Man was talking
and
to.
I mean, they kind of explained it, and they those trailers were deceiving. They cut things in a way that
Mhm.
made Strange look
Of
way
course
worse.
they did.
Yeah.
Of course they did.
But now
They gotta
that
make
Just
you
his
go
fashion sense.
They
It
got
was
to
terrible.
make you go watch their other products.
right.
Yeah.
Well, but now that the end credit scene for the new Doctor Strange movie has been released as the new trailer
Mhm.
for the Doctor Strange 2, I'm more excited, because you look at that What If storyline and you look at some of the things that were dropped in that trailer, and you're like, is that the same Strange from the What If? Are we going to get that? You know, and then that opens up a possibility that I hadn't even thought of, because yes, Hawkeye, Loki, all of these things are contributing. What If seemed to me like this would be cute. No, if they're going to start pulling stuff from that, then we could get, Captain Carter.
Yeah,
That would
I
be
mean,
amazing.
Tease me that way.
Yes, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, yes, I feel like they are going that direction because of the Eternals. Because of, I mean, they are slowly bringing in things that deal with the multiverse.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy touched on it.
I
Right.
just want Iron Fist back.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do.
No, you
No,
don't. No, you
yes,
don't.
he liked Iron Fist.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do.
No, you don't. No, you
Stop
don't.
it.
No, you don't.
We have a perfectly good Shang-Chi. Iron Fist is the Shang-Chi that we have at home.
There's just nothing I can say to any of that.
Oh, any other thoughts on Doctor Strange as a whole?
This is a little historical and definitely a branch away from the discussion, but I think it needs to be mentioned that this is one of the places where Marvel did Steve Ditko wrong.
Yeah.
Using the Marvel method of writing comics, it became pretty clear that by the end of Ditko's run on Doctor Strange that he was doing all of the heavy lifting. And apparently towards the very end, like, he and Stan Lee weren't even talking to each other. So I really do think that we have to take a moment to acknowledge, hey, we got that kaleidoscope universe in the Doctor Strange movie because of the creative mind of Steve Ditko. And I think it needs to be called out. He was a very talented, creative force that passed away alone in his New York apartment, and we need to acknowledge him and his contributions better.
1000%. And you said it better than I could. I started comics in the early 90s. One of my first collected comics was I went and found all of Maximum Carnage, to give you an idea of, like,
wow,
you
say that out loud.
Yeah, I did.
Listen,
And I still enjoy Maximum Carnage. That's a fun storyline. It's dumb, but it's a fun storyline. And actually, I need to watch the second Venom movie, because I heard there's a bunch of Maximum Carnage-esque.
I still haven't
parts
seen
of
that
that.
yet. I haven't seen that. I
It'd be
haven't
worse.
seen
You could
Eternals.
be trying to tell me that Infinity Gauntlet was a good comic story.
Oh, well, no, it's not.
All right, I'll make you a deal. You go see The French Dispatch with me, or we rent it because it's now not available in theaters. You watch that movie with me. You watch my Wes Anderson. I'll watch your Venom.
Okay.
Oh, come on. You haven't seen Isles of Dog?
No, I've seen a bunch of Wes Anderson.
Okay.
I just make fun of her because there's an SNL sketch where they do the new Wes Anderson movie, and it's all, oh God, it's so funny because it's so accurate. And I enjoy Wes Anderson, but Wes Anderson, when you go and watch it, you're going to watch the same fucking thing that you watched the last
absolutely, yeah. And you're going to love it. And that's
yes,
kind of
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why the great directors are the great directors. Wim Wenders, Wes Anderson, the Coen brothers. Come on. Yes, it's formulaic. You know what you're getting.
I would say have a lot more variety.
You order pepperoni pizza again because you liked it the last time.
Right. I get it. I totally get it. Well, says the guy who at the beginning of his Dune thing was like, fuck another Marvel movie coming out.
No, I meant Eternal specifically.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh.
I do think that, we were, Josh, we were hearing you joke earlier on about how, the oath is this, anti-capitalist screed. And of course,
It is. It's so good, though.
Because at the same time, Azalea is writing Why the Last Man at exactly the same time and exploring a lot of the same issues. But I mean, even this Oath storyline, we got to go back to David Mamet and the water engine, which I think Bear alluded to earlier, where it's just like, if it can't be monetized, it can't be valued.
Right.
That central tenet of capitalism. So as we pay homage to the earlier artists, we got to pay homage to the water engine as well, because this is a very much the same story.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and it's in comics is the same as in other forms of media. The more things that come out, and the more we progress as a technological society, the more ways we can find out to monetize the things that were worthless before. The invention of streaming, YouTube, all of these things means that if you had a creative idea but couldn't sell it to anybody, now at least you could just do it yourself. It may not have everything that it needs or could have, but you can get it. I get an email a week currently, and do not stop sending them, by the way, because I know that they actually listen, from independent comic companies that are like, you have a comic book podcast, and I actually pass those on to Dalibor now.
Oh, good.
Who does panels on Pages.
Right. We have friends that do shows about independent comics.
Since the new year,
don't stop.
Yes, and this is the 8th of January. Since the new year started, I've sent him 2.
Oh, good.
That people have reached out and said, "Hey, we've listened to Graphically Novel. Here's our independent comic." And my response is, we do things that have media components, or we explain like storylines in larger things. But here's Dalibor. He does this other podcast that specifically targets
suited for your
and I might guess appear. We may do episodes of that, but I did not know the idea of a small run it from your computer publishing company. You can do it now with the internet, with everything else, because everything's digital.
People have been doing it for a very long time.
Well, yes, I understand zines and
self-published comics in local comic stores have been a thing. It's just now you don't
even need the paper.
Right. Also with the internet,
Cyanide and Happiness. I mean,
you can get much farther distribution than you could.
Right.
Well, and that's not to say that people aren't still pursuing the paper books. I mean, Quimbley bookstore in Chicago is a great example of that. They still have a huge section of small zines and all sorts of things. And then also, like even Chicago Comics, they still have a nice section of these are the things that you can see people have cranked out on their copiers.
Yeah.
And hand delivered them to each local comic shop.
See, for me, that wasn't even local comic shops. That was the Hall Mall in Iowa City. Had like an incense. It was a head shop. It was absolutely a head shop, but it had a back room that was all zines and self-published comics and all these other things. And that's just, they didn't sell mainstream comics. That's just all they sold. And that's where you went if you wanted that. But it's does it have value if it can't be monetized? I would argue yes. A lot of people would argue yes, but our society says no. Yeah. Why would you put? None of us have ever made a penny off of this. And between 2 podcasts, I'm about to hit 100 episodes. I put in way more money than I've made out of this, but I enjoy it. The 24 friends of ours that listen. They enjoy
Listen
it.
to it every week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some things are just
You know,
passion projects.
being the voice of capitalism, I'll say you're just not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's that I
Where
don't
are
have
your bootstraps?
Yes.
And grab them and
You
pull
haven't-
yourself up.
I know I know exactly how to get there. I just
You
don't
haven't
have
worked
the
yourself to death
$10,000 to invest in the
Right.
marketing campaign.
What do you mean? Your parents can't loan you $250,000 to start up the next Amazon?
$1 million loan.
I will say the embodiment of capitalism in the Oath. I know that this is a
loved it.
one-off villain. Dr. West is just perfect.
Yeah, he was so good. He's so
You
good.
know, it's just we're
I
just going
loved
to
it.
use him. We're going to throw him away. And
As they
talking about how Mordo gets to where he gets, and
Right.
how a lot of Marvel villains get to where they get. Boy, Azello really condenses.
Vaughn.
Condenses a lot of history in a few short panels.
Right? And
Understanding
again,
exactly where this guy is coming from.
so many years before Skrelly,
Mm.
and everyone knew like that story because it was on every news and everything else.
Hashtag pharmacy bro.
Yeah, the farm bro. So Rex, I am going to change our last question. I'm still going to give it to my co-host, but I'm going to change my last question a little bit because you have read Doctor Strange, so a lot of Doctor Strange. So I'm going to ask you, you hadn't read The Oath before. Are you more interested in looking post 2007 for more of these kind of nuggets for Doctor Strange?
You know what? It's interesting because I went back, and as I was getting ready for this, I did take a look at Origins of Marvel Comics, which I still have from when I was 12 years old, and I want to go back. I'm not sure that I want to see what's going on right now, but there is some beautifully done work from the later 60s once Ditko left that has a great kind of golden age, almost pulp feel that I would like to go back and see. Now, the other thing, on the other end of that, there is the Death of Doctor Strange storyline going on in Marvel Comics right now.
Which is
And
actually affecting a lot of other things, including Spider-Man.
Right.
Most because it has to do with Mephisto and yeah.
And spoilers, apparently Clea is going to become the new Sorcerer Supreme. And Clea is one of the characters, again, that I've always felt has never been developed fully, has, literally is introduced as woman in danger in her first appearance. And I would really like to see what Marvel's going to do with that from a comic perspective.
All right. Awesome. Jen, are you interested in reading more Doctor Strange?
Not particularly.
Okay.
I mean, it's like I said, I enjoyed the story. This is not the type of comic that I liked.
To go back to Rex's, actually, I'll wait. I'll save that for
Okay.
mine. Bear, are you interested in reading more Doctor Strange?
I would. I think I would probably pick and choose which authors I've gone, having heard from the rest of the peanut gallery here. I think I would probably.
I like how you're the star and we're all the
Right?
peanut gallery.
Yeah, exactly. But
Everybody's worldview.
like having heard everybody else's input on it, I think it would probably go back through and pick and choose and go with authors that I've recognized that have done other things that I enjoy. But I really do enjoy the character of Doctor Strange. I definitely think that I would find more of this.
Yeah, I personally really, really enjoyed this, and I probably would. But as Rex was talking, I remember, and it is actually even mentioned in the Oath, that Doctor Strange did a lot of stuff with Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Night Nurse. It did a lot of stuff with the Defenders in their heyday in the 70s, just post Ditko. I actually might want to look that up, get a little more history, because I've always wanted to read a lot more of the Defenders stuff. Daredevil also, obviously, in there. But the Defenders / Heroes for Hire, all of that kind of thing. And, we have yet to do a Luke Cage episode because we would not do it justice without a person of color being on that show. But eventually we will. And I'm I'm interested in looking at, like, I know how Luke Cage and Iron Fist, for example, like their dynamic. And I have seen Iron Fist in Doctor Strange, but somebody that's like so ground in the street level crime fighting like Luke Cage and Doctor Strange, like that's an interesting back and forth to me.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I was like, knowing what I know about the Defenders, and granted, I haven't done a lot of the reading of the comics,
Right.
only for what we've examined in the show,
right,
and what I've seen. I can see like introducing Doctor Strange into that world almost would feel wrong.
Right, and that's why I want to read it.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see how they deal with that, because introducing magic to something that ostensibly
The
is all about
folk.
street level. Yeah.
Well, to me, I'm like, the first thing that popped into my head is Jessica Jones is going to be like, oh, it's the new Purple Man.
Maybe. Except you would have to go post 2001 for Jessica Jones, because Jessica Jones wasn't in the original Defenders. She didn't exist until post 2000.
Okay.
So it's
But go and read the Alias books, because they're really, really
we
good.
did.
Oh, it was our
Really?
second episode.
Sorry, I didn't-
Yeah, yeah, we have covered Jessica Jones, and I literally own almost everything in hard like a hard copy of almost everything that Jessica Jones is in. Just because we have two Jessica Jones statues in Jen's case.
Yep.
We are very Jessica Jones positive.
Oh, also, other connection to Rex. I have my Aoife statue.
Oh yeah.
Is in my case with her feather wings. The Aoife figurine that was my character in a game that Rex ran. That Rex made this figure for me. He made figures for all of the characters in his chronicle, which, I mean, come on, that's amazing.
Why, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
I
you.
would say, if you're going to go back and look at some Doctor Strange, there are certain recommendations that I think need to be made. First of all, Strange had a number of talented writers and artists working, and you got to hit them at the right time, because there's a lot of fill. There's a lot of kind of weird garbage that's going on. I really enjoyed the recent might be mid-aughts, Chris Bacalo take on Doctor Strange, where you've got Doctor Strange swinging a big old battle axe. You know, it was an interesting take. Can't say I stayed with it very long, but I enjoyed the art and really looked at it. But if Barry, you're going back to look for stories, try to find the graphic novel Triumph and Torment. It's a Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom crossover.
Oh, you got
You got me. I'm looking for.
It's written by Roger Stern and illustrated by Mike Mignola. And
of
it is
Hellboy.
just
Yeah.
of Hellboy. Yeah,
Also,
it is-
that's now you also have me.
it is just a great take on the character. Also, Steve Englehart, who is known for some of the better Batman stories of the 70s. He was on Doctor Strange. In that run, it's Doctor Strange, Master of the Mystic Arcs 1, 2, 4, and 5. They did a story called The Silver Dagger, which is also really, really worth going to look through. And then going back all the way, Doctor Strange introduced the character of Eternity, and that's an entirely Steve Ditko creation that embodies everything. And that comes and runs in the Eternity Saga, which is back in Strange Tales 130 to 146. That is Steve Ditko, Stan Lee, and Denny O'Neil, who is also one of my favorites. And this collaboration between Ditko and Denny O'Neil, I have to think, informed Denny O'Neil's future work on The Question, which is another great series from the late 80s and early 90s.
I'm just going to point out to our listeners, if you decide you want to go look up Triumph and Torment, it is expensive if you want it in hard copy.
Hey, you know what, Paul? I looked up to buying The Oath, and it's like $75 because it's out of print right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, a lot of things for this season We got digital because
we should also make mental notes to tell our listeners that, because some of the stuff we've come across is
very expensive,
is costly.
Yeah. I'm going to throw a quick shout out for Marvel Unlimited and the DC Universe.
Absolutely.
They are great ways of getting in touch with some of these old comics, reading through entire runs.
Yep. And if they don't have them, Comixology probably will. If they don't have them, Drive Through Comics might.
Yep.
I mean, Marvel Unlimited and DC Universe are both subscription services that open everything. Comixology and Drive Through Comics are both ones that you buy it and you buy the digital copy. But yeah, if you are starting to get into comics, it's $10 a month. I know for Marvel Unlimited. I'm not sure DC Universe anymore.
Comparative. I think it's $60 for the year if you buy it annually.
There you go. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. A one-time thing to put down and be like, okay, well, I know I'm going to get into comics, and you at that price point, at $10 a month, if you're reading one run through, so if you're reading one story arc, you're ahead on graphic novels.
Well, that and check out your library.
Absolutely.
Since so much of this is being digitized,
Yep.
libraries are offering a lot more comics and graphic novels.
Yeah,
Well,
our friend Rachel, Reed's girlfriend, when they were down and we did the Hot Ones video, I showed her the first issue of Wicked and the Divine and said, "You're gonna love this." And she sent me a picture. She's like, went to my local library. They had all of them.
Yep.
I picked up the first three. This is what I'm going to read.
Right.
This, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Again,
well,
libraries.
actually, I didn't even think of that. But yes, a lot of libraries are picking up graphic novels, physical
Absolutely.
graphic novels, as well as digital. But
I think I think it's worth throwing out the app Hoopla, which works with local libraries to deliver digital content. They have an incredible library of graphic novels. Not only things like Wicked and the Divine. If you like that, you can go read Die, which is the current effort coming out of there. But you can also go back and find almost all of the Marvel Masterworks, all of the good stuff.
A new one.
I love Wicked and Divine,
and
Saga,
Phonogram
and Saga. Obviously, Lock and Key.
Yeah.
Hey, I just keep waiting for my next issue of Saga real soon.
It is real soon.
Yeah.
They have announced that they're restarting. Yep.
I'm just looking at my little bit of the bookcase here. What else?
Well, they're in alphabetical order, so.
Oh yeah. Oh, you did where are my other ones?
It's funny though. I know we're getting really off topic. My daughter Trinity loved Phonograph.
Yes.
I think on the introductory paragraph it says something about rumors that Iggy Pop might be a vampire, and that just hooked her right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we all know that he is.
Absolutely. I mean, come on. Cuts himself on stage. Blood
well,
magic.
Rex, we don't have to stop talking, but I am going to say thank you so much for joining us.
I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for having me. I certainly hope that you'll invite me back at some point.
Oh, well, like I said, Sandman is coming.
Well, for sure, Sandman, but definitely we'll keep you.
And also check out Rec Conversations. If you have a comic book storyline that you'd love us to explain
that you haven't read,
that you'd love us to explain to you, we have a whole list, and they're not always great, but they're fun.
I'll start.
I'm going to go back and see what you guys thought of Dark Phoenix right now. Actually, I'm looking forward to that. Although I will say, in advance of Sandman, really, really need to listen to what Audible has put out.
Oh,
we
absolutely.
already did.
No,
we already did.
Okay. We're on the second.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yeah, we're on the second now. We just haven't gotten in a car for a long period of time.
I know. It's my fishing. It's my fishing.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Well, we got to make a Galena trip soon anyway.
Yes.
So, Anyway, please, everyone, join us next time when we will have Jenn's oldest child, Alex, with us, and we will discuss Young Justice. As we come up almost on the end of the season, we have that episode, and then we have Luke, Bear's brother, joining us again for us to do Howard the Duck.
Don't we still have Allison with Mystery Men?
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Scheduled that yet.
You're right. We do have Mystery Men. I did schedule it.
Yeah.
You have an invite waiting.
Oh, okay.
But until then, take it away, Vandello.
Come with me, I'll tell a story that you might have heard before. Graphically novel, but the same old trouble. Villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same. Do 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 do. Come at me, and I'll show you something you ain't never seen before. Right or wrong, oh can't we all just get along? My mask is no different than yours. Pretty pictures on the screen, but nothing's ever as it